Recently, I've spoken about some of the things that I love about the SP404 Mark II, and maybe a few things that I don't like too much as well, such as the arrangement side of things. One thing I absolutely do love about the SP404 Mark II, though, is all the built-in effects. Not only are they clutch for adding that extra sauce to your samples, but they're also absolutely incredible for beat performances as well. So today I thought I'd explain the MFX that I use when I'm performing beats on the SP404 Mark II, and I'll show you how to get the smoothest and best sounds out of them. Hopefully you can learn a thing or two from this video and improve your beat performance game on this amazing little device. So just before we kick off, I want to talk about the skin on the SP404 Mark II. This is a completely custom skin which I've had designed by Crema Cafe. This is available in my store, so if you wanted to go ahead and pick that up, use the links below, or I think I can tag the product in videos now as well, so look out for the tag for that. Thanks to all those that have picked that up so far, really appreciate it. And from a technical point of view, I want to show you something before I get into this that I always do before I start performing beats on the SP404 Mark II, and that is to dial in the tempo. So you may already know the tempo of the track, so you can just dial it in straight away, but if you don't, what I tend to do is just play the track and tap along with tap tempo. So I've got this track loaded in here, ready to go. Okay, and I'll go to shift and tap tempo. Okay, and that looks like it's 74. It's probably 75 because I wouldn't really make a beat in 74, I don't think. So we'll change that to 75. And from what I can tell from my personal experiments, that just helps to dial in some of the effects, especially delay, that are kind of dependent on the time of the track. So I always think it's useful to do that before you start doing any performance on the SP404 Mark II. Okay, so the first effect that I use a lot with my performances is Isolator. So this is in the top right here. You can see I love Isolator for treating samples, and I love it for live performance as well. These are the settings that I use for performance. I use it as a kind of high pass filter. So if I put Isolator on here, I'll click Remain and the button. This is the setup which I would have. So I'd have minus infinity for low, so absolutely no low, and then the mids and the highs both set to 0. So what this is going to do is just cut out all the lows of the sample, and it gives it this kind of tinny, I'm listening to this through a cheap radio kind of sound. So I really dig it. You can put it at the start of your beats, which it sounds really nice on intros, and you can just throw it in wherever as well. So I'll give you an example of it here on this intro. What this is going to do is create the effect that the track sounds quite thin, but then when you take it off when the track kicks in, it gives it a massive boost. So that's how I use it in the intro, like this. Okay, so you could use it like that, or you could just throw it in at a random point in the beat as well, so I'll show you that too. I'll skip past the intro for this example and just show you part of the beat. Okay, so I've shown you a few examples there of where you can throw it in. I always tend to do it on the beat so that it stays nicely in time with the beat that you're playing. So hit it on the beat, take it off on the beat as well. That helps it just to sound that little bit smoother. Okay, delay is the next one up, and this is actually in the bottom left here. I'm a huge fan of this effect. I think it can add some really nice sound to your beat, and it can kind of create slight variations which sound like they've been programmed in. So that's why I found this effect really useful. It can just make your beat sound a little bit more dynamic, and also it's just quite a cool effect anyway. So yeah, I really like using delay as well. This one in particular, as I mentioned, it's worth tapping in the tempo before so that you know it's going to be nicely in time. So these are the settings that I have for this. It can change from track to track quite dramatically, so make sure you have a listen to the beat first and then dial the settings in to suit. So here I've got 1/8 time. Now I always stick with 1/8 time. That is the one consistent thing about this effect. The feedback on this particular track, I've got it set to 30%, and the balance 96:4. So I just want that really subtle delay on the beat, and that's going to help to create these kind of drum variations, which you'll hear when I demonstrate this now. I really like the way the delay does this, and this is the main way I would use it in my performances. So let's give this one a go. Again, it's going to be the same track. You're probably going to get sick of this track by the end of this video, but I'll play this again. So hopefully you could hear there, it was a really, really subtle effect, and it was just kind of acting as though it was adding a variation onto the drums, and I really, really like that. It just spices things up a little bit and adds a bit more of a dynamic feel, so I really like delay for that. Okay, next up is super filter. Now I've changed my filter and drive to be super filter. I have the cutoff at around about 70 for this one. I have the resonance at 0, and I have the filter type as LPF, obviously low pass filter. So what this is going to do is take all the highs out, and it's going to allow me to do what is called a sweep. Now, if you've not heard of a sweep before, basically it's where you slowly increase or decrease an effect, and it kind of adds suspense. You'll hear it a lot in pop and sort of dance music as well. It's kind of like an overused thing, to be honest, but it can also work for hip hop and lo-fi bass beats as well. So I tend to use this now and again just to add a little sweep in, and I'll give you a demonstration of a sweep. I will start with my cutoff at around 70, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to sweep up until it becomes 100, where basically there's no low pass filter anymore. It's back to the original sound of the track. So again, I'll give you an example here now. Okay, and the great thing about that one as well is you can kind of hold on the low pass filter for as long as you want. So you might just do it for 1 bar, you might do it for a couple of beats, you might do it for 2 or 3 bars, but then you can slowly start taking that cut off out of the equation and bringing it up to 100, and that can really add some nice flavour to your beats. Now we could go a little bit more extreme than 70, I think that sounded a bit too subtle, so let's try it about 50. There we go, that sounds a little bit better. So we're getting this kind of muffled sound, and then we can bring that up. And again, as you'll notice with that effect, I'm really trying to keep on time with the beat. I'm trying to bring that fader up, so when it comes back to the original sound of my beat, that's going to be on the beat, and I can take the effect off. That keeps your effects really smooth, so I do think that is very important to keep all these in time, as I have been doing with my examples. Okay, last but by no means least is my favourite effect for jamming. It's the DJ effects looper, and again that's set up here, so it's really easy to get to in live performance. This effect is just absolutely amazing for a couple of reasons. Number one, I just love the sound of the stutters, and I think that's become kind of like a theme in the SP world. And secondly, it's actually quite versatile as well. So I'll show you a few little effects that you can do with this, but I actually think at some point in the near future, I'm going to do another whole video about DJ effects looper, because there's just so many different ways you can use it on your beats. So first of all, my main setting for this, and this tends to work for any tempo beat, is to set this dial to around 1 or 2 o'clock on the first dial here, see. So round about point in here, you've got to make sure that the speed is on 100, and you want this right hand dial to be off on the loop. So that's off, and what you're basically going to do is use this dial like a trigger, and you're going to bring it on and bring it off. Again, you really want to keep this in time with the beat, so you want to be concentrating on bringing that on and off in time with the beat, and that's going to make this sound super, super saucy. We'll start this beat, and I'll show you this first example now. Okay, so you could hear there, I kind of tend to do it near the end of the bar, but you can throw it in at different points in the beat to really good effect. Again, like I say, just make sure you bring it in on the beat, and that's going to sound pretty nice. Now, another way you can use this is to bring this dial right down to 0, or as low as it'll go, basically. And this is going to add a slower stutter. You're changing the length here over on the left. I'll try my best to demonstrate this now, and hopefully you'll be able to hear it. Again, that's one to experiment around with. The timing of it can be really crucial. Again, it felt like I was throwing that in at the end of bars again. Just that little stutter at the end of a bar and then back to normal. That can be a really nice effect. And there's one last setting which I want to show you guys as well, which is really good. So we'll put this back to 1 or 2 o'clock. We'll make sure this is off. and it's kind of using this middle dial to stop the track as if you're stopping a record, and then you quickly bring it back in again and it speeds back up again. So I'll do a demonstration and then I'll try and talk about it a little bit more. I personally love that effect. It's kind of like the record slowing down or being stopped with a finger. And I think that is actually the reason that that dial exists. It's meant to create that kind of sound because it's like someone on an actual deck. Those three in combination can be really, really lethal. So I'll just do a quick demonstration of those three all together on the same kind of jam. And then you can see the power of DJ FX Looper. It's just so versatile and so fun to use as well. Okay, so that's DJ FX Looper, one of my favourites, and I think, like I mentioned, it's just great. You can do all sorts of different things with that effect, and it's just so fun to jam with that. Okay guys, that is it for this video, and I just want to leave you with 4 final tips. These are going to really help your effects and your jamming to sound much better when you're performing. Number 1, make sure you're always complementing the beat. Think of effects which are going to sound good with the sound of the beat. That can vary from beat to beat, so watch out for that. Number 2, don't overdo it. I think it's really good to have subtle effects in there, but don't be going crazy trying to do like 2 or 3 different effects per bar. It just sounds too much. So you want subtle, and you want to get them nice and in time, and that's going to make them sound really, really nice. Set them as your primary buttons up here. If you want to use different effects, you can do that on the Mark II, so make sure they're easy to access because you don't want to be rooting through these menus trying to add the effects. It's a pain in the arse, so get them set up here. That's how I've got all mine set up. Finally, just have fun and experiment. There's loads of effects on this unit, and I'm sure there's more on here which would be great for live performance. So leave a comment below. What's your favorite for live performance? I'd love to hear, and maybe it'll give me a few new ones to play around with. That's it for this one, guys. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you all in another video very soon.